Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the Further Maths Applicant event this evening. I'm Simon King, the head of maths. So, yeah, thank you for joining. This evening, we're going to talk through kind of what further maths is as a subject, why it's important to consider, not just from a maths point of view, but from a wider STEM point of view. And we'll also have the opportunity for you to hear from some of our current students. They'll introduce themselves a little bit later on. And then, yes, as I said, if you have any questions at all, please do use the Q&A function on Zoom, and we'll get to those towards the end of the evening. So there we go. First off, let's talk a little bit about what further maths actually is, because there's sometimes some confusion. Further maths is a second A-level taken in addition to A-level maths. So you either take just A-level maths or both maths and further maths. The whole point of it is to broaden and deepen your understanding of some mathematical concepts, particularly some that you wouldn't necessarily see until you start to get into early years in a STEM degree. Some of the content in further maths builds on the A-level maths syllabus. Other topics are brand new. Now, although you need a 6 to do A-level maths here at college, we do require a 7 for you to study further maths here at college. Now, this first bullet point is something that we often talk to students about as kind of an unofficial grade requirement, is you've got to enjoy it. Because of the way further maths works, it'll take up at least half of your entire timetable. So you have to really enjoy maths. If that first bullet point is seeming a little bit odd to you, then further maths might not be the right choice for you. Maybe doing A-level maths and 2 other subjects is going to be much, much better. The materials met in further maths, we do a lot quicker. And also the content that we look at across both years of the further maths introduces some topics that are very, very common in a lot of different STEM degrees. So we'll look a little bit later on at some statistics about the number of STEM applicants who have further maths, but you will be competing with students who have seen a lot of these topics before. Some courses either require or have a preference for further maths, but also from a college point of view, students who take further maths do incredibly well in their maths A-level. So I said you do both. 100% of further maths students got at least a B in their maths A-level, and 95% got at least an A. 54% of the further maths cohort last year achieved A stars in both their maths and further maths, with a large proportion achieving an A star in their maths and an A in their further maths. So the students who take further maths typically do very, very well in their maths A-level. So some of the topics that link very well with a degree are complex numbers, matrices, Maclaurin series. We don't look at the more general version Taylor series, but that is something that can lead into a wide number of degrees and professions. Differential equations is a very, very broad topic. And the decision maths unit as well is a very applicable unit to both economics and computer science. So a lot of the topics that we meet are very broad within STEM. I put this slide in just to kind of highlight the difference between A-level maths questions and A-level further maths to kind of exemplify why we do have that higher grade requirement for maths. Now, these are 2 questions that are in the same topic. The A-level maths one, a lot shorter, a little bit clearer, and a little bit more guidance. Whereas with the further maths, a lot more words, a lot more interpretation. And that's kind of the difference between the 2 topics. Although the topic itself is the same the style of question is going to be quite different between the two, maths and further maths. But again, as a further maths student, you'll get to experience both. So I spent a long time preparing for this, speaking to heads of department and teachers in STEM departments outside or departments outside of maths to really get a feel for where further maths content comes up in topics beyond or in subjects beyond maths. Quite a lot in chemistry, with the more advanced calculations, computational sciences, Newtonian dynamics, so how things move. A lot of the techniques we'll look at in further maths, when we look at the advanced calculus and solving differential equations, are very, very applicable to a wide variety of subjects, degree level physics, some biology, a lot of statistics and finance will use differential equations. Thermodynamics and mechanics, very physicsy, and also using some of the concepts of group theory that we look at in the decision unit do come up in chemistry, and a little bit in biology looking at DNA and genetics. So going more on why further maths is very, very useful. So the AMSP, who are a charity who support high-level maths and do a lot of work with both us and other institutions across the country supporting further maths students. They did a survey a few years ago analysing the maths qualifications required and asked for the 2020 entry. You can see in the table there that particularly for maths, a large proportion like or require further maths and maths as part of their grade requirements. Physics as well, you can see 100% of courses that were surveyed require maths, and a small proportion prefer further maths. Now, in terms of the preferences, some universities, particularly for STEM, won't necessarily require further maths for not maths courses. The reason being that it would exclude a lot of students from schools who don't do further maths, but they put it on there as preferences because they like to see, students' ability to manipulate mathematical computation. Although the data here on this slide is a little bit out of date, there isn't a huge amount of truly up-to-date data at this point, but you can see that bottom bullet point there, looking at the intake from about 10 years ago. 60% of maths undergraduates had taken further maths A-level, and kind of holistically what we've seen from kind of training sessions that I and the maths department have done, we're seeing that number go up. But I don't have any concrete statistics published for that. And you can see there's a large number of students who choose to do other subjects who have done further maths, even though it's not a requirement. Okay, so it is very, very useful for a wide variety of courses related to maths at university. Just to give you a few more examples from a range of universities, you can see Cambridge require further maths to be taken for maths, expect or require further maths to be taken for the majority of their engineering courses, their computer science courses, and for the natural science, chemistry, physics focus. The biology focus side for the natural sciences, they don't specify further maths. And you can see this quote here is taken directly from the Cambridge Admissions FAQ, talking about if your school offers further maths. So both Oxford and Cambridge do recognise that some schools don't offer further maths, but what they both say is this, that if your school does offer it, and they know that we do, they expect you to take it. Okay, Durham for natural sciences, just due to the vast quantity of maths in their course, they are requiring A-level maths and at least AS level further maths. Now, AS levels aren't really that much of a thing anymore, but at college we do have the option for students who start on further maths, provided it's further maths, and 2 other subjects, we will give you the option to take the AS further at the end of your first year. It's not a common option. The vast majority of students who start further maths finish further maths, but we will give you that option for those of you who choose to do further maths as a 4-program subject. Going to Imperial in London have always traditionally held themselves as a very science-heavy university. In fact, they are continually rising in the rankings of the world universities. You can see there for both computer science and mechanical engineering, although they don't require further maths, they are strongly encouraging. And for a lot of these universities that strongly encourage, not taking it will put you at a disadvantage. When they come to interviews, they will ask why, and they might not look favorably on it if you don't have a sensible answer. Okay, you can see there, Glasgow for physics, also recommending further maths. So this is kind of what I'm trying to highlight with this event this evening, is to demonstrate to you why further maths is important for even if you don't want to go and do a maths degree. So looking to go and do STEM or even economics, further maths is looked upon very, very favorably. You can see there from a paper written 10 years ago, students are often surprised at the extent of mathematical demands of their university programs, and some students struggle to cope with those demands. Over 80% of economics students surveyed stated there was much more maths involved in their economics degree program than they expected. So looking even at economics and not STEM, there's still that high mathematical component, and further maths will really, really help you with that. More examples about economics at university. Both Cambridge and LSE are looking for further maths. You can see there a few colleges at Cambridge even state that they require it for economics. Cambridge really helpfully publish on their website the most common subjects that students take for A-level going into their degree programs. And you can see there that 93% of students who studied economics at Cambridge took further maths. So if you're thinking of doing economics at Oxford or Cambridge, we would strongly recommend you consider taking A-level further maths to put yourself in a good competition with the students who will be doing that. Okay, but you can see there LSE as well, liking further maths, but putting that statement that they recognize that not all schools offer it, but because we as an institution offer further maths, realistically, you should be taking it. So just to summarize before I introduce our student panel and we can get on to some questions, the content of the further maths is fantastic preparation for a large number of STEM degrees as well as economics. Some courses, and there's too many courses for me to name to say these ones definitely need further maths, these ones only recommend it. Some universities will reduce an offer if you have further maths included as well. That's up for you to do your own research in preparation for your enrollment interviews over the next few months or so. Consistently, both nationally and specifically at college, the proportion of students taking further maths is increasing. In the upper six at the moment, we have around 40 students. In the lower six this year, we currently have 60. So we're seeing that number of students interested in doing further maths, wanting to do more maths in their program, going up and up as well. And already our projections are looking pretty good for next year. And we can see the proportion of students on STEM degrees having taken further maths is also increasing. So I'm just going to go hand over to our students to introduce themselves. So we'll start with, it's in a slightly different order from what I've got here. So we'll start with Jackson and go down my line.
Hi, I'm Jackson Bailey. I'm in the upper sixth. I do, as you can see, further maths, biology, and economics, and I am from Carrington. I went to Carrington.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I study maths, further maths, economics, computer science. I went to the Beacon School and I'm in year 12 or lower sixth.
I'm Jess. I'm in the lower sixth and I study maths, further maths and chemistry, and I went to Stafford.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm in the upper sixth. I study maths, further maths, physics and history, and I used to go to Carrington.
Hi, I'm George. I'm in the upper sixth. I do maths, further maths, physics and geography, and I went to Warlingham.
Thank you all. So before we start taking some questions from you, the audience, I just want to go down and get you guys to each sort of say how you found further maths so far in your time at college. Obviously, 3 upper sixth students have had a year and a little bit of experience of further maths, and our 2 lower sixth students have had just over half a term. So yeah, Jackson, how have you found kind of the further maths course at college so far?
I mean, as someone who really enjoyed maths at school, having the option to do further maths was pretty perfect. I really enjoy it in general, and it was probably the only subject I really wanted to do. So having further maths available was great, and I just really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm still here in the second year. I didn't do the AS. I wanted to keep doing it. I wanted to take the A level. It's challenging, it's rewarding, and it's a lot of education. But if you really enjoy maths, it's well worth it.
Thank you. And lowest students, Jess and Aaron, how have you found transitioning from GCSE into further maths?
So I've actually found it quite well because it may seem like really daunting at first, having like loads of hours of maths a week, but the teachers really do like slowly show you what to do. Most of the start is building upon GCSE content, but the more you obviously get along the course, the more difficult it will become. But it's really not that huge of a jump at the start. And if you've got like a really good foundation of GCSE maths.
As someone who obviously enjoys maths, as I took further maths, I feel like the pace that it goes at suits me perfectly, and it's nice because we do 2 topics, one with each teacher, and it's quite enjoyable to do quite a lot of work to do maths.
Great, thank you. Holly, as someone going from the first year into the second year, how did you find that jump? Did you find it more of a jump going from GCSE into A levels, or from the first year into the second year?
I would say it's around the same jump going from GCSE to the first year of A level, and the first year of A level is the second year of A level. But yeah, it's very manageable, and the content at the moment it's just more content rather than the content being more difficult, I'd say.
Great, thank you. Got a couple of questions now from the audience. We're getting through them all. So if we could just go down the line, starting from George and go down the other way. Very quick question. What maths grade did you all get in your GCSEs?
I got a 9 in GCSE maths.
I got a 9 as well.
I got an 8.
I got an 8 as well.
9.
That's great, thank you. One of the other questions we often get asked a lot is, I didn't get the option to do GCSE further maths or GCSE additional maths. Has that hampered me at all? So Aaron, did you say you had done GCSE further maths?
Yeah.
And Jackson, you said you hadn't. Aaron, how have you found the GCSE further maths useful? in specifically doing the further maths, or has it just kind of helped you a little?
So the GC further maths really does help, as most of the topics do appear in like early course, like Pure 1 and Pure 2. You learn a couple of the topics, not as high as a level, you actually learn them in A level, but you learn the foundation, which really helps upon learning them at the start.
And Jackson, obviously, as someone who maybe within a class with people who have taken GCSE further maths or additional maths, have you felt yourself disadvantaged at all by not taking it?
I mean, not really. To be honest, I mean, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the start of the year one where we do the pure maths, so like your main big bulk of it, and I found that most enjoyable because it's all new. It's all a majority new. A lot of it is built off GCSE, but when you do the new stuff that a lot of people have done in their GCSE further maths, it's all interesting. I mean, if you enjoy maths and you really enjoyed it, just taking the GCSE, I found no really disadvantage to it. Everything's taught to you very well. You can adjust to it quite quickly. It's all kind of built off what you know, and it's just new methods and ways of looking at things. So I mean, if you're curious and you like learning these new things, and there's really no disadvantage in not taking further maths at all, honestly.
Great, thank you. Right. Well, another question from the audience. We'll go for this one for George. Is further maths as complicated as it looks?
So obviously there's a lot of topics throughout the A-level maths and the A-level further maths course that are difficult when you look at them. But because you're doing so much maths and it's all building off each other and GCSE initially, it's quite a steady increase in difficulty. So I don't think there's anything that is as impossible as it looks. You will get there eventually, and it's all right.
Great, thank you. Okay, slightly long question for this one, but it's a sensible one, and this is again quite a common one with further maths. Is it best to take 3 A levels and get high grades rather than 4, including further maths? So I think we'll go with Holly, doing 4 subjects. I think maybe why did you choose to do 4 subjects, not 3, to start with? And then we'll go to Jess, who is obviously doing 3 subjects.
The main reason that I chose to do 4 was because I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do the further maths. And so if you take 4, I would then have the option to drop down and just do 3. I was kind of like questioning whether I would maybe drop the history later on at some point. But once you like get into the rhythm of doing all the work, it's not that bad.
So in contrast to Holly, I kind of had this clear idea that I'd always want to study maths at uni. So I just thought I don't want to study an extra subject that I won't use. So I chose maths, further maths, and then chemistry because it's STEM and it was the science I enjoyed most at GCSE.
Lovely, thank you. So yeah, so kind of whether you take 3 A levels or 4, including further maths, we will kind of recommend throughout the whole enrollment process whether we feel you would be capable of doing kind of 4 A levels, and if you're in that kind of category of 4 A levels, including further maths, you then do have the option of choosing to do 4, or as Jess has done, opting to only do 3. We generally would advise, if you're interested in going into a STEM field, kind of taking both maths and further maths is a very, very good thing to do. But students who do both and one other, it is typically against advice purely because it is very narrow. But as Jess said, she was very, very clear with going to do a maths degree, so it made sense to maths, further maths, and one other. But if a student wasn't necessarily 100% set on what they wanted to do, but only wanted to do 3 subjects, we'd probably recommend not doing further maths and choosing 3 to keep the options open. So an interesting question that is kind of quite close to some of the other things that I do at college is the ratio of male to female students in further maths. So Holly, how many people, what's the ratio of girls to guys in your class this year?
In my class, there are 2 other girls, so it's not great, but at least there are some other people, and I'm really good friends with all of the girls that do further maths. Because I think in total it's about 10 girls that do further maths, so it's not that many, but yeah, you make good friends.
Yeah, so in the upper six, yeah, as Holly said, it's about a quarter of the students. But in contrast, Jess, how about in your class?
There's 8 girls in my class, and I've made great friends with them. And I know that they're in other classes. There are more girls, aren't there? And yeah, I think there's a good enough ratio, because obviously it's a more male-dominated field, but there are girls that will be in the lesson.
Yeah, we've seen the number of girls interested in doing further maths increasing significantly over the past few years. For even 2 or 3 years ago, we had 1 or 2 girls in the entire cohort. To, yeah, as Jess said, in the lower six this year, having I think almost a third of the cohort being female, which is something that I am particularly interested in pushing and improving. If there are any female or female students watching, we do have a Women in STEM applicant event that is coming up in the next few weeks as well. So next question, is further maths helpful for someone to looking into computer science? So Aaron, as someone who does computer science, I'm not saying necessarily that's what you want to go and do, but how have you found the maths and further maths linking with the computer science?
Yeah, so I found computer science with further maths actually quite helpful, because it does develop my like knowledge of like maths and trying to like problem solving, because you do start with a bunch of maths at the start of the course. And also later on in that further maths course, you actually start to link with computing, like some algorithms and like sorting stuff. So it really does help. And universities also like really appreciate if you do further maths as well for the application.
Yeah, just to build on what Aaron was saying, going back to my earlier slides about the number of students applying to do computer science with further maths. In fact, maths tends to be a requirement to do for computing at degree level, and a lot of universities will like further maths as well. This is more a question that I could answer. Can you take an AS level as further maths and still carry on with it in year 2? As a college, we won't allow you to do that. So if you opt to take the AS further at the end of your first year, you will then move into a normal A-level maths class in your second. So we don't give you the option to kind of hedge your bets and take the AS and then continue. So that is a decision that students will have to make, usually around January time. But yeah, we don't let you take the AS and then continue. Question that I can't answer. How much time do you spend doing homework? George, how much time do you spend doing homework?
So for maths and further maths, there's 4 hours of homework and 4 hours of structured learning a week, which, although it's like the theoretical amount of time, usually it does vary quite a lot from that. So although that sounds like quite a lot, when you're doing the 8 hours of lesson time a week and you're doing that homework on top, it kind of comes like you're just able to do it quickly and concisely. And it is not as big of a deal as it seems initially.
So kind of we're on the sort of theme of talking about 4 A levels. A question came through: has anyone taken 4 A levels and an APQ? We actually don't let you do that because it's too much. Doing 4 A levels is a lot of work, and doing an EPQ on top of that is significantly more. So if you do 4 A levels, you would likely still be in an Aspire class, and you'll be with people doing an EPQ. But we typically do not let you do an EPQ with 4 A levels because it is too much work. So choosing 4 A levels or 3 A levels and an EPQ is an interesting balance. and it kind of depends on what you want to do. Jess, I believe you're doing an EPQ. So could you just talk a little bit about kind of the process for an EPQ so far?
So because I'm in Aspire, we get to do our EPQ in the first year, and so far the teachers have helped us look at what topics to do. And by the end of this week, I actually need to have my title finalised. And I think I'm going to do mine on how statistics link into maths and how people lie with them to do that. But we haven't really started doing the proper EPQ yet, but yeah, we're building into it now, and it's quite easy.
Do any of you on the 4A levels regret not doing an EPQ? Just shaking heads. So how many lessons a week when taking 4A levels? So each of your subjects is 2 2-hour lessons. So you have 4 hours per subject. So you have 16 hours of lessons a week. On top of that, you'll have 2 hours of homework and 2 hours of independent structured learning per subject. So your timetable does fill up. Particularly the students who are doing 4A levels will typically have Aspire as well, which is an extra hour. Might do other things. So if you play team sports for college, you'll have that on your timetable. If you do the Duke of Edinburgh Award, that gets put on your timetable. So it can start to fill up quite a lot. Question for any of you really. Does the amount of maths per week ever get overwhelming? Let's go with Holly, why not?
I've never found it to be overwhelming, even with all of my other subjects. To be honest, maths is the work for maths is the work that I normally do first because I enjoy it the most. And it's the other ones that I get pushed back, and they would probably end up being the ones that I wouldn't end up doing, but would be panicking about because I haven't done them, and be doing it the night before. Whereas maths I normally get done really soon.
And going back to Jess, as someone who 2/3 of your timetable is maths, do you ever feel that that's too much?
No, I love it personally. Obviously some people might not, but it does just feel, it just rolls quite easily, and I do just get the work done as soon as possible as well, because it works well and then it helps me in my lessons. So
no. So another question for me, can we see the 25-26 syllabus ahead of time? Yes, if you, our exam board is Edexcel. So if you just search for Pearson Edexcel A-level further maths, you'll be able to find the syllabus that we have there. Likewise, if you search for Edexcel Pearson A-level maths, you'll see our maths syllabus as well. So you can definitely find that ahead of time. Another question, would physics, computer science and maths A-level be manageable or too stressful? So that's probably the most common combination of subjects that we see in maths, definitely 2 of 3, regardless of whether it's maths or further maths. In fact, physics, I think out of their entire cohort, there are about 10 students who don't do A-level maths doing physics. So physics, computer science and maths, it depends on what you like. If you like kind of a high level of maths in your study, and you're capable and willing to put in the time, that's not necessarily going to be a too stressful program. The key thing with any subject is, if you are struggling, make sure you're asking for help. As with maths a lot, but with really any A-level or even kind of any level 3 program, if you don't reach out for help, if you're getting behind, it's very, very hard to catch up. And we tend to see students in that position are the ones who find themselves getting very, very stressed. So if you choose a program that you think is hard, but a fun challenge, great. But make sure you stay in contact with your teachers, your tutor, your senior tutor, and all of the support systems we have in place at college to help you if you are getting too stressed by your program. Okay, how similar is the A-level further maths to university maths? Is there any overlap? So what I found when I did my maths degree was basically the first term, a lot of my units were more or less A-level further maths. As I said, not all schools in the country offer further maths, so universities need to make sure very quickly that everyone is working at the same level. So whether it's the entire first year or the first term or even the first few weeks in a particular unit, there's likely to be a decent chunk of overlap, and then it extends further. There's also a lot of potential variety in what units are chosen. So with the A-level maths, it is prescribed. Everyone does the same thing. With the further maths, there is a little bit of choice. So all students who do further maths across the country are required to do 2 units of what we call core pure. The other 2 units of further maths are up to the choice of the institution. We choose to do further mechanics 1 and decision 1, but there are other options that other schools might choose. So there is quite a bit of overlap, but there will be some new stuff as well. Say, Jackson, as someone who doesn't do physics, how have you found the further mechanics and the mechanics unit in the further maths?
I mean, further mechanics and mechanics, relatively similar, but is in some parts, but definitely it's. I honestly I enjoy further mechanics a lot more than the regular mechanics. It was harder, but it was a lot more interesting. They introduced a lot more like new ideas and apply things in different ways. It's actually really interesting. Someone who doesn't really enjoy the maths part of physics too much. I don't do physics at all, so I mean, all the mechanics modules are relatively new to me compared to someone who does physics. But the further mechanics is really interesting, and it's definitely it definitely builds up, and it can actually help a lot with your base mechanics because we actually learn a lot in advance. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff. As someone who doesn't really do physics, yeah, you can really enjoy it even if it's not particularly applied to you. It's and like I said, good build up as well for a year 2.
And George, on the other hand, as someone who does do physics, how have you found the overlap between those 2 subjects?
So I think it's quite useful for both subjects, actually. A lot of the start of physics is all the mechanics stuff. So then going back and revisiting that at the end of the first year content for A-level maths and further maths is just useful to solidify that knowledge, and it basically just makes it a very easy component for both subjects. So it reduces the workload quite a lot.
That's great, thank you. So Aaron, you've already spoken a little bit about kind of your program. How well have you found economics going with further maths so far?
So far in economics, we have just started about doing some like equations and like percentage changes. So further maths has helped like a tiny bit in just knowing, like obviously just work on your maths, like mental maths, but being able to do the multiple choice questions quickly. But I feel like maybe later in the course, it'll become more helpful.
Thank you. So how can students receive support if they're struggling with further maths? So we'll go, Jess, if you felt you were struggling with further maths, what would you do?
So Simon is actually my maths teacher, and I have another one as well. So I would either speak to Simon, speak to my other teacher, or speak to my tutor or my senior tutor, and I'm sure that they would help me straight away.
Yeah, depending on the teacher and kind of our time frames. So I myself run maths drop-ins twice a week. So for specific maths help, whether it's maths or further maths, students are very welcome to come along to my drop-ins. And as Jess said, if it's a broader kind of pastoral need, then we have a lot of support networks in college available to students, all students, regardless of kind of what courses they're taking. So what is the typical format of homework and a standard deadline in maths and further maths? We'll go with Holly.
So you get set 2 hours of structure, so 2 sets of 2-hour structured learnings on the Monday morning. And then that's during the following Monday. And then you also get set 2 homeworks, which are an hour, I think, each. And they'll get set sometimes throughout the week, and you'll have a week to do those as well. It's completely reasonable to be able to get it done in a week, so it's fine.
Yeah, the format of the homeworks tends to be just practice questions. The way we do it, again, regardless of whether it's maths or further maths, is the homework tasks that we set students self-mark. So we provide the mark schemes with the homework tasks. The way we do assess students very, very regularly. In addition to the key assessments that students will have every half term, we do regular testing throughout the term as well, which typically students do find very, very useful to help track their progress. From a structured learning point of view, the weeks will vary. The most common kind of format is students will access a video that we have made that introduces 1, maybe 2 topics within a larger topic, to give us time in class to then practice those in more detail and get onto harder, more problem-solving type questions in those topics. So that's kind of the format. Okay, interesting question now. And we can go through everyone. What is the topic in maths that you've done so far that you find the hardest? So we'll start with Jackson and then we'll go down.
I'd have to say 2. I think what we're doing now, which I actually don't know the name of the topic what we're doing right now. We're doing imaginary numbers, and like actually we start in year 1, and then you build up on it, and you do things like exponential forms and stuff like that, which uses all the crazy numbers. It looks very complicated, and that's definitely a lot. And also vectors is really hard as well. That was one that took me, I think, Simon's nodding his head. I think everyone usually has a little bit of struggle with vectors. That one, you definitely have to sometimes wrap your head around it, but you can adjust them though. Like vectors is an example of something that I did find really hard, and now this year we've done them a bit more, and now it's more or less of everything else. But yeah, I would say vectors and imaginary numbers are some of the hardest in my opinion.
For my hardest topic, I feel like logarithms is the one I struggle with the most, as it's a brand new topic, not covered in GCSE or further maths GCSE. And there's a lot of questions that build up from just the base knowing the content of logarithms. So do struggle with a tiny bit.
I'd have to say circles. I think it's all kind of similar, and there's a lot of places where you can make easy mistakes, and there are quite big mark questions like 8 markers that I do struggle with a lot.
I would also say what we're doing right now is like complex numbers and summations using the complex numbers in this different form. But also that might just be because we've just started it, so I haven't had much practice on it.
I'd say probably matrices and vectors is what I struggled with the most, because that was just the start of the further maths content, and it was completely new, and it's just difficult to wrap your head around. But I've got it now. So.
Yeah, you can see it's kind of further maths particularly is very varied, because a lot of the topics are distinct, linked to each other, but kind of can be quite distinct. It very much varies from student to student as to which ones they find hardest. So question, any good online resources you'd recommend to help understand the further maths topics better? I mean, the sort of standard go-to website that you may have already used is Physics and Maths Tutor. There's a huge amount of resources there that go sort of topic-based resources, kind of pre-teaching resources. There's a lot there that's really, really useful. It kind of collates a lot of information from a lot of various places. But has anyone used anything other than Physics and Maths Tutor to help with their studies?
I use Save My Exams because they can teach you the topic and then they give you exam questions, and you can immediately see right there and then if you've got it right. And they offer like sample papers, and I feel like it's just a good place to find all the group topics with all of the exam papers and sample papers in the specific is it the syllabuses, because you get EdXL and AQA, and you can pick which one you want, so it's very specific.
Another thing which I use a lot, which is supplied by Reigate College, is even though you have the videos which you use for the structured learning, you have access to all of the videos over the entire 2 years of content for both maths and further maths. So if I don't ever understand a topic, or I come back to it after a year and I just can't remember at all, you can just go back to it and it's all the lockdown stuff. So it's really clearly set out and you've got it in your booklets as well. So it's very useful.
Great, thank you. Would biology, chemistry, maths, and further maths be too much? Again, it very much depends on you as a student. I would also say depends on what you want to go and do with it. Students, we often get a few students who query about biology, chemistry, maths, and further maths with the view to going to do medicine. And although we would, wholeheartedly encourage as many people as possible to do further maths who are capable of doing it, students are thinking of applying to medicine, veterinary medicine, or dentistry are the students who probably could do further maths that we strongly advise you don't, purely because there's a lot to apply to those courses. There's such a broader range of things that you have to be doing, as well as really getting phenomenally strong A-level results. So things like your work experience, preparing for your pre-university exams, that kind of thing, reading up on current developments in medical science. There's a huge amount of additional work that you need to put in off your own back, that we do have support networks for that at college, that taking further maths as an additional one is not necessary for medicine. So we generally recommend you don't. We do every year have a few students, 1 or 2 students who will be doing further maths and wanting to go into medicine. So it's not impossible. It's just we recommend you don't. But biology, chemistry, maths, further maths, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, there's no reason that would be too much. How big are classes? So class sizes are usually average around 18 in the further maths. At the start of the year, they tend to be quite big. And then with students who are on 4 subjects, sort of trying out the further maths, and then a few will drop. My lowest class this year hasn't really dropped, so that's 21, but the other classes are a little bit smaller. So it will very much vary, but the average class size for further maths is usually about 18, 19. So how much time spent outside lessons on further maths? So as I've already said, kind of the expectation is that all students will do 2 hours of set independent work, structured learning, as well as 2 hours of homework. But do any of you feel that you need to spend more time on your maths outside of the work that we set? Or do you just like to do more maths outside of the work that we've set? Any of you can kind of unmute and say anything if you want to.
I feel like sometimes it can be necessary just to quickly look over like a harder question, just so you can fully like round your ideas of what you need to do, but it won't take longer than like maybe an extra 15 minutes. It's just, if you really, really want to fully understand what you're doing, then that is the way to do it.
So this is definitely a question that I can't really answer. What is Aspire and how does it link to taking further maths? I'm assuming you all do Aspire. Yeah. So Holly, what is Aspire and kind of how can it link to doing further maths?
So Aspire is an extra 1 hour lesson you'll have in the lower sixth. We don't have it in the upper sixth anymore. And it's for majority of people that don't do further maths and do an EPQ, that will be where they get all their information about the EPQ. Obviously, I didn't take an EPQ, but Aspire is super helpful in terms of university and like things to do after college. It was so helpful with writing my personal statement and getting ready for like applying to uni. Because obviously at the beginning of the lower sixth, I had no idea what to do, but at the end of the lower sixth, I knew exactly what to do.
Lovely, thank you. So how many assessments do we do with further maths? So in class, we usually have for each of the two teachers, more or less, sometimes it will vary, but more or less, there's going to be one test for each teacher every 2 weeks. So students will usually be doing a test a week. They're short tests to kind of review and address the topics that we've covered most recently. And then every half term, each of the teachers will have a key assessment that covers pretty much everything you've done up to that term. In the first year after Easter, you have 2 progression exams, one for maths, one for further maths. So the maths for progression exam will be the same one as all of the students who do A-level maths does, and then the further maths progression exam will be just for the students doing further maths, and they'll cover different topics. That kind of model carries on through to the upper sixth, but you have mock exams after February half term rather than after Easter. In the final assessments, because there was another question about the exam structure. So the maths A level, you have 3 exams, each of 2 hours. 2 of them cover the pure content for maths, and then the third covers both maths, both statistics and mechanics. For the further maths, you have 2 core pure papers, and then each of the applied units, so the further mechanics 1 and the decision 1, have their own paper. The maths exams are each 2 hours, so 3 2-hour exams, each of them 100 marks. The further maths exam, each of them is an hour and a half, and they're 75 marks. So both subjects are maximum mark is 300, and you have 6 hours of exams in the end of your second year for those. In 1 week's worth of lessons, will the 2 teachers be teaching the same topics and their lessons are different? We teach different topics. So the way we split up courses, each of us takes half of each of the courses. So between September and in a few weeks' time in the first year, one teacher will be doing half of the maths content, the other teacher will be doing the other half, and then similar model with the further maths. So yeah, each teacher will be doing different topics. Are there many maths competitions like the UK Maths Challenge? So we've just had the Maths Challenge. How did it go? How many of you did it? Ooh, everyone did it. Oh, great. So we've done it for a long time now. How did you find the Maths Challenge? We'll go with Aaron. How did you find it?
So it was my first time actually doing the Maths Challenge, seeing the types of questions. It was a bit of a shock at first, but because it's a whole nother like type of maths, like it's only based on GCSE content, but it's like very difficult compared to actual questions you get. But it's mainly just testing your thinking. If you can think well, think logically, you'll find it pretty well.
Great, thank you. We do have the follow-up rounds coming up soon. So anyone who achieves a gold certificate in the Maths Challenge is invited to do the Senior Kangaroo. And if you get above a certain threshold of marks, you also get invited to do the British Maths Olympiad, which we do have a student doing this year. If they do well enough in that, then they'll progress on to additional rounds. We do also have the Maths Olympiad for girls. Holly, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you did that this year.
Yes, it's quite a different style of like competition. It's all about like how you lay out your work and the proof. And I thought it was going to go so badly, and it was actually like a lot of fun. So yeah, it was great.
Great, thank you. So how much emphasis do we place on proving formulae or just applying them? To be honest, the majority of the maths and further maths A levels is use of formula. Particularly with the further maths students, we we'll go into a little bit more detail about where the formulae come from. But in terms of the specification, that's not something that students need to be aware of. So as much as it would be nice to prove every formula that we look at, sometimes we just don't have time. So yeah, the emphasis in both the maths and the further maths A level is more on use of formula. The further maths style of things does have a lot more proof, but again, it's proving particular results rather than proving a formula that you're going to use. So a question about progression. If you choose to do a subject that doesn't link to further maths or the other subjects that I choose, would that be frowned upon by universities? Not at all. So you can see here we've got students who do a wide variety of subjects. Some link with further maths, some don't. It'll very much depend on what you want to go and do. You know, last year we had one of our students who wanted to go and do a maths degree. Her courses at college were maths, further maths, history, and politics, because that's what she wanted to do. So no, universities do not frown upon taking non-maths subjects if you want to go and do a degree. What you should check beforehand, though, before you start choosing your subjects, is are there any requirements? So for instance, if you want to go and do engineering, you probably need to do physics, but that kind of thing. But no, not at all. Okay, this is a good one for you guys. What are your tips for revising GCSE maths? Jackson.
Well, I haven't done GCSE for a little bit, but if I'd have to quote one of my maths teachers, I'd say the best way to revise is just to do more maths. That's probably the #1 way to get better at maths entirely, because it's definitely not like other subjects where you need to memorize things. Like biology is like a big kind of remember the marks for the mark scheme, which can be a bit dull. And maths is a lot better at that because you can do practice questions, and you know, and I know we like Simon said, we use more than we prove, but like actually understanding how things work and you know just getting yourself familiar with these kind of concepts does just really help. And it's I definitely maths is one of those more flexible subjects where you can do a lot of things to help yourself understand or do questions. You can just do past papers, and you could just do your own stuff. You can find your own questions or watch a video on it. It's very flexible, but I think #1 is just do as much maths as possible. That's why a lot of people doing further maths are probably a lot better at doing maths in general, just because they just do it more. They just have more time to do it. You're doing it double time than anyone else doing maths. So I mean, yeah, just do it more.
Thanks. Yeah, that is what we tend to tell our students as well, is just doing more practice. Okay, are the further maths lessons fast paced or does it vary? Jess, what do you feel?
I think they're relatively fast paced, but if a subject is hard, if a topic's hard, then you can obviously just ask for help and they will slow down 100%. So it does depend.
Thank you. A couple of very quick questions. Are maths and further maths separate lessons? So kind of yes and no. On your timetable, they would come up as separate lessons. But in terms of the structure of the course, both of your teachers will do a little bit of maths and a little bit of the further maths. Any students taking 4 A-levels plus further maths? No, we do not let students do 5 A-levels. That is way too much work. We had, I think, I'm just trying to think back. We did have a student do it on the old specification and she just about coped, but she had no time for anything else. So no, we don't let students do the equivalent of 5 A-levels. How strictly do we follow the syllabus? Pretty strictly. It's a very full-on syllabus. Maths is a very, very content-heavy course, both maths and the further maths. So we do have to be quite strict with the syllabus. We might teach things in a different order to how the syllabus is laid out, but we do follow it very, very closely. With the further math students, we do have a little bit of time, purely because the students are typically stronger mathematicians. We do have time to go a little bit off syllabus. I know in my class, I've used kind of some extension questions. Jess, how have you found kind of the extension questions that I've given you so far this year?
He's given us Cambridge entrance exam questions that were quite hard, but he put us in groups, random people that obviously, because we're quite new, we haven't spoken to everyone yet. And it was a really good way to get to know everyone and do questions that you haven't really seen the style of before.
Okay, last two questions, because we are nearly out of time. My background, interesting question. I've never had this one before. What's my background? I went to school in Sutton. I did maths, further maths, physics and psychology for my A-levels. Went to University of Bath to do a maths degree because I knew I wanted to be a maths teacher. Pretty much came to Reigate straight after finishing my degree, did my teacher training here, and I haven't left. The fact that typically teachers don't leave is a really good indicator that, you know, it's a really good institution to work at, and, you know, happy teachers make happy students. So that's my background. And the last question, is there competition to get on the further maths course? No. Last couple of years, we kind of have scheduled for, so this year we scheduled for 2 classes, but because further maths proved really, really popular, we put on a 3rd lower 6th class. So the only competition is you getting your grade 7 at GCSE. You know, provided you get that, you're not competing with anyone else to get onto the course. Yeah, there's no competition in that sense for getting onto the course. Just make sure you get your grade 7 and we'll be happy to have you. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much to our student panel here for hosting. Sorry if we didn't get to your question, but we are out of time. I believe you'll be emailed a survey. A survey will pop up on the screen shortly. We'd really appreciate if you would take the time to fill it out. It helps us improve these talks tremendously year on year. But thank you very much for attending. And if you have any further questions about further maths, please do feel free to get in touch with the college. Thank you very much.